Now, I've been very open on this podcast and in smaller circles about how I feel like, Judd Anderson is a project. And, I had a private conversation with Shannon and we talked about, his philosophy behind that. But then we got a chance to see the young man from Milton, and we got a chance to see him play in South Florida. And he's not much more of an elite prospect than Judd is. And it seems like a back-to-back tape. Where's the Canes philosophy from your perspective, and how all these quarterbacks are and how they relate to sort of on-field potential? You know what I mean? Because you kind of got lucky with a Tyler Van Dyke. He was a highly touted guy, but he's not suspected to come to the South and have the success he's had mostly in his sophomore year and then at the beginning of this year. Where do you frame that as a guy that follows this pretty much all the time?
Yeah, I think it's fair to, have a wait and see approach with both of these commits right now. I will say, Miami is all in on Judd Anderson for this 2024 cycle. So seems like he's a guy that's locked in from a Miami standpoint. But yeah, I agree with your assessment. I think he is, a bit of a project. I think he's a traits type of guy, and that they feel like maybe they can develop some of the things that are missing there. Like, they feel like they can improve accuracy, but what you can't teach with Judd is his size and his potential to have a strong arm. I think Shannon Dawson, frankly, he is a guy that primarily has been at smaller schools. And so he kind of trusts his ability to evaluate maybe quarterbacks that aren't highly, highly touted guys. And he does have a track record of success with developing productive quarterbacks that maybe weren't the highest recruits. And so he kind of feels comfortable doing that. And I think right now, Mario, Cristobal, and the recruiting staff are kind of letting Shannon Dawson cook in that regard. We'll see how it all plays out, though. This is just me talking. If Miami goes out and wins 9 or 10 games this year and becomes highly attractive to highly touted quarterback recruits in this 2024 cycle in December, would I be shocked if if Miami makes a move there, right? So, yeah, I to your point too, I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see what Tyler Van Dyke decides to do after this season. I think the feeling right now is he's going to go to the NFL. And if he does, I wouldn't be surprised if they go attack the portal and try and get the very best quarterback they can out of the portal too. So that's also an avenue where you can, upgrade the talent at quarterback as well.
They're also playing this really delicate game about whether we're going to redshirt Emory, trying to redshirt Jacurri, and who knows what one of those guys does at the end of the year and what happens with that. I mean, there's so much that goes into play when it comes to these guys that you're trying to play, chess right now, but you don't know where all the pieces are on the board.
Yeah, I think, it is they're not being open about it, but honestly, I think it's just a situation where they really do want to give Jacurri the red shirt. I think Jacurri wants a red shirt. Now, is it awkward right now with Emory being the number 2 guy? Yes. Is Emory probably the number 2 guy? I think so, honestly. But I don't think that rules Jacurri out from being a starter in the future if he keeps improving. And so I think he's just focusing on improving his skill work right now. And I do think there's a chance we see him in some packages in some games this year.
David, let me ask you this question. So, I've followed this program, been around this program for way too long, right? You have gray hair. I don't have hair anymore from this program. So, and it was always about, keeping the local kids home. Sometimes we'll go out to Cali. Sometimes we'll go out to Texas. But this is a whole new world of recruiting, right? I mean, like Tyler Van Dyke's from Connecticut. He's got that wicked piss of a New England accent that I'm used to. They're grabbing kids from Georgia, which was never a thing before that they are now. What is the emphasis on keeping local kids home versus still looking nationally at what's out there in the rest of the country? How's the staff handling that?
I think there's still an emphasis on keeping the local kids, but I do think they're being more picky than maybe we've seen here in recent years. And I'm fine with that approach. I think you got to land the best players you can possibly land. And if that means you got to go national to get your O linemen and D linemen, I think you should do that. I think there's some positions where if there's a stud wide receiver that's local, if there's a stud corner that's local, Miami is going to do everything they can to keep that guy home. They're not going to hit on every one of those guys. That's just the nature of it. But I do think the elite of the elite, they're working hard to keep home. Again, that's easier said than done because, as we know, the competition is fierce in South Florida, and quite frankly, local guys want to explore their options as they should. So, I think the approach is the right approach if you want to compete for championships, because when you confine yourself to just one area of the country, while the best high school football is played in South Florida, you know, from cycle to cycle, you're going to have some positions that are unbalanced locally. And so it's best to recruit nationally, I think.
David, one thing I was wondering, who is sort of teetering on that line of major recruits? Obviously, Armando Blunt, we talked about this, came into the class for 2024, and there's some potential. 25, and there's some potential he could be a 24. I don't know how much you know about that, but who are some people that are lurking out there? Obviously, Jeremiah Smith's a big target. I don't think Mario's given up on recruiting him. But who are other guys that are started on the fringe that Miami's really still hunting after and thinks that, either they can get, with a decent season or with a great season, or they're just not giving up on it and don't want to let go until signing?
Yeah, I think, if we're talking locally, I think they're talking a little bit to Jordan Lyle, the St. Thomas Aquinas running back who's committed to Ohio State. Amir Jackson, a tight end committed to Florida, 4-star guy. They're certainly recruiting him. Francis Brew is he's a guy that's committed to Pittsburgh, defensive tackle, 3-star guy. If I was going to just pick who might be Miami's next commit, I would probably pick him. He's kind of a 6'2", 270 twitchy defensive tackle that Miami's got a lot of traction with right now. They still feel like they're in it for Aiden Breland, who's a 5-star defensive tackle from Mater Dei out in California. So we'll see how that goes here. Booker Pickett, who's a Miami legacy out of Tampa, smaller defensive end, but very twitchy, can get off to the quarterback. He's a guy to know. Adarius Hayes, Florida commit at linebacker. And then, of course, you mentioned Jeremiah Smith. That's true. My approach with that is let's see where things stand in December with him, but Mario's certainly not gonna stop recruiting him. And then at corner, Ellis Robinson kind of in the same boat. IMG Academy, 5-star corner committed to Georgia. Let's see how things stand in December. If Miami's done what they needed to do on the field and put themselves in an attractive position for those level recruits, you don't count out Mario Cristobal with closing on those type of guys.